Hello, good evening to everybody. To start the panel, we wanted to give you a brief overview of the luxury good market in Latin America. And Carlos is going to help us with a brief presentation for the overview. Carlos?
I got the exciting task of getting this going. So hopefully I wake you up in a little bit. And we have a presentation coming. That was about to review who we were, but they already did, so we have the panel and who's going to be there. So you got the names, and we'll go to that at the end. So next, please. What I'm going to do is just a brief presentation, just an intro, to get your minds thinking about the title, which is Luxury Goods and Service Panel. Your monitor, and we can put the next slide, is a market research company. We do research in 80 countries in the world in 26 different categories, from alcoholic drinks to travel and tourism. So we are trying to measure the consumption of goods and services and many other aspects of life and how that's integrated with economics and the macroeconomics of the countries. So we produce market intelligence tools. So right now we're just going to see a little bit of what we measure in terms of luxury goods, and there in the right column, you see which categories we're considering. So when I'm talking, and you see the next slides about luxury tobacco or any of those categories, it's how we define and put that. We're measuring the regular consumption, and then as we, in the last 10 years, we have seen these categories develop, we have created a particular industry called luxury goods that is measuring those categories that you see there, from electronics to clothing and footwear, which is one of the tops and the largest. So now the question is the recession affecting those categories? Will affect in the future? Is the consumer getting smarter? We all know that, as I said, premium and luxury goods are beyond good and evil. I mean, everybody, they withhold recession, and that's why marketeers usually have them in their portfolio. But how's that? Is the consumer in the global environment being more smart, is not buying a luxury? So the answer is no, they're still buying. And what I'm going to just present right now in the next slides are going to be how's it shaping, which countries are contributing to that growth. So, do I have that? Excellent, that helps. Alrighty. Well, here, the first slide, we have the ranking in the countries that we're measuring this around the world. You see there are around 20 countries or so. We have ranked it in the years according to the contribution of the value that they provide to this growth, and we have kind of see the share of those countries. And the interesting thing, let me see that. Oh yeah, here we got a laser here. The interesting thing here is that obviously U.S. has been and is number one, followed by Japan, and then we have the rest of the countries by colors there. The good thing is by 2015, we will see that there's a big race where Brazil, in this case, Mexico is around here, starting to take a bigger space in the luxury goods market. And we see China from number 7 in 2005 occupying number 4. We're going to see a little bit why and why this is coming in the next slide. So let me show you a little bit. This is, I don't know if you can see it correctly. I have a big light in front of my eyes that is blinding me, but hopefully you can see this. This is the global map, and the colors of the countries represent the growth. So the darker the color, the more growing the compound annual rate of that country, it's faster. Some countries you don't see because of the projection, but or we don't measure those countries, so they're kind of in gray. But if you imagine the map of the world, you're definitely going to see Europe and Brazil, Mexico here, and the Latin American countries are growing at a pace of 4.9 compound average growth rate, which is quite significant. And this is just to compare with the U.S. The U.S., the size of the market is around $46 billion, and the per capita is 148. Here you'll see the percentile, so they're obviously a very penetrated market, so it's at 100%, where the percentile for the per capita is 73. So there's still room to grow in the per capita arena. They're very developed compared to the rest of the world, and the growth of the US is only 2.7 compared to other countries at 4.9, etc., like 7 point, like some countries in Asia and India, etc. We're going to see those slides soon. Now here's the the historic and forecasted growth. So this just shows you the recession here. You can see in 2008 and how it was being recovered, and now what is the trend for the future. So we not only measure the historic numbers, we also are trying to portray the forecasting of these categories. In the panel, we're going to discuss a little bit about how is disposable income and how some factors affecting the growth and the rise of the luxury goods market. Just to give you an example, comparing where countries were in 2009 and where they're going to be in 2014 regarding annual disposable income, you'll see that most of the emerging markets are going to be growing. Everybody since in this list is showing some growth, and here you see the in dollars the per capita disposable income. So just to give you a good perspective of which markets, and if you're marketing and you want to try to see an attractive indices, you can compare all those GDPs and all those indicators and decide which market to go. Now, where's the luxury market heading? And there's only a few slides left until we go back to the panel. Well, basically, we see that China, as I mentioned, is going to take over the race. But even if they have recovered, there's still a little damage after the recession. The consumers have gotten a little bit smarter, but definitely the growth is coming from the BRIC countries, which is Brazil, Russia, India, and China. Are the ones who are generating more enthusiastic buyers and more revenues. No wonder that companies are investing in these countries and launching brands. We don't have time to go over all the categories and all the stuff, but at least I'm giving you a perspective of where we are right now. So this is comparing, and if you don't see the color, this is a darker, like a little gray versus blue. Emerging markets versus developed markets, how they were growing and how they will be in 2015. And we're seeing that the urbanization, the economic development, and all those factors are contributing to these emerging economies, and they will represent 40% of this growth in the future. So that's pretty significant where Latin America is placed there. But again, Asia Pacific and China are the ones who are leading this race, and these are the top 10 growth markets. So India apparently is going to be one of the, we're talking about 400% growth in the next, in the future. So it's very interesting to see that. Just to show you a little bit of how the categories are divided and what are the rankings. One of the, no surprise, clothing and footwear is one of the largest. The top 5 categories, these ones that are here up until super premium beauty and personal care, represent 90% of the total luxury categories that we measure. And number 1 is clothing and design, clothing and footwear. with $64 billion. And then we have that. We have other categories growing. The top 5 luxury categories, yeah, I already mentioned that, account for the 90%. And the super premium beauty and personal care and alcoholic drinks are showing very good perspective for growth. Just to see how they're looking into the emerging versus the developed markets. These are the developed markets and the future growth, and these are the emerging markets. So how the categories are going to grow. We don't have time to go over all those details, but definitely we're going to see clothing and footwear growing in big times, respect the other category in the emerging markets in the future. Fragrances, of course, in Russia. And if we do a double click and we will have more time, we will see which brands and which categories are, which brands and which companies in these categories are bringing the growth. But we don't have time. I just brought you an example of the fragrances, which is always a good benchmark because, you know, even the alcoholic drinks want to be into fragrances. And how they are, sorry, how we're just going to finish, but how we were in 2005 and how we're going to be they divided the premium versus mass fragrances in 2010. In the past, a couple of examples of what they do in the personalization. They're putting labels with the name of the people in the brand, attached to the brand. So those type of things, we don't have time, but there are like 4 or 5 consumer key trends that I want to touch here to close and leave that to, you know, back to the panel, which is we're seeing the group called the Blingastics, which are the ones who want to show bling. They want to be noticed, so of course they look for things that are to show off. And the exclusivists, that are drawn by being unique and different and special. The old money, they're more tied to tradition and some type of functionality about the historic value of things. And the new aesthetics that are looking for experiences and time and more of the green, the eco-green, luxurious people. And then novelty, that they just want the latest gizmo and the fastest and the world. So these are pretty much how we're segmenting those consumers. And finally, this is the last slide before we go back to the panel. I hope I didn't pass the 10 minutes that they gave me. To set this going. We got the Brazil and Mexico account for the largest Latin America growth in luxury goods and services with almost 5% of a compound annual growth rate. The US, of course, will remain the largest luxury goods market globally, and Western Europe is set to witness the slowest growth. They're growing as the rest of the country are. If you remember the first slide, somebody's constraining, that's Western Europe. Rising inflation and lower economic growth in the Eurozone is, you know, like what is contributing to this stagnant, slow process. And emerging Asia Pacific will continue to lead the global recovery. We saw China and India as the top growing markets. Regarding categories, designer and clothing and footwear will remain the biggest categories in 2015, and alcoholic drinks and beauty and personal care will continue to offer great room for improvement and opportunity. So I'll go back to the panel, and we have some questions to discuss. I put them there. I don't know if they're the same that we discussed, but they're going to be there.
Okay.
Let's check this out.
Thank you very much, Carlos. I think that from his presentation, we can all understand that the market, the luxury market for Latin America is going to continue to grow for the next coming years. And I just wanted to give you, before we start, I'm very lucky to have the group of people that is forming this panel. I think we have a wealth of experience in luxury goods. And obviously, the idea is to try to get as much information from them so we can make some future decisions in our companies. But what we wanted to structure is we prepare some questions, and then we're leaving a session open for questions inside the audience. But before we begin, for the benefit of the panel, we wanted to understand from the audience, we wanted to understand where you're coming from. How many of you guys are from agencies? Could you please raise your hands? And from marketing departments, from other industries? Perfect. So I guess that gives you a little bit more of a feedback so we can start tailoring your answers. But let's get to the first question. What we're trying to understand is how the luxury goods and advertising media mix has changed over the last 10 to 15 years. How has digital impacted or accelerated changes in the last 5 years? Tanya, could you please start giving us your comments, please?
Which is different from that question, isn't it? Just check. Yes.
Yeah, I guess, why don't you bring one before, because we changed the order of the questions. The first question is, how has the luxury goods advertising media mix changed over the last 10 to 15 years?
Yeah, I think the biggest change is that in Latin America, luxury goods advertising started in the last 15 years. It didn't exist previously almost. And it started in the last 10 to 15 years through, and today lead high-end printed titles. And so today completely leads it. And so I think it started from non-existing to completely lead it. I think in the last few years, what is changing dramatically is the role of social media to build these brands. And the role of social media, I think it goes much beyond the role of internet to advertise the brands, as we were discussing previously. I think the role of social media is changing completely how we will build content for these brands. It's changing for luxury, and we took some time to understand that it had a role in luxury, but it will change how do we consider the role of content creation for advertising. Because in the moment you post something in whatever social media page, someone posts something immediately, so we changed immediately the content of what you just created. So you cannot control anymore what you're creating, and I think we are seeing this, and I think luxury consumers also are more interested in things that are related to things that people are posting and creating all the time instead of content that we are creating, advertising flat that we are creating. So I think it's dramatically changing recently.
Thank you very much.
Before I answer the question, I want to just explain a little bit what Chopard does. Chopard is a family-owned company which produces high-end watches and jewelry pieces. It is a big company. At the same token, we are a niche market product. We have worldwide 1,500 point of sales. We have 150 boutiques. And if I speak about Latin America, we have 130 point of sales with 7 boutiques. So whatever we have done has been very concentrated and very focused. And to come to the question now, the last 15 years, yes, our business has grown. So we were able to basically increase our advertising expenditures. And by doing this, we have been able to look at institutional advertising, where we say, okay, we're going to go for image advertising. And then we also spend a certain amount of money towards advertising which is sales-driven. Of course, this is more of the social magazines, to give one, Ola, Caras, any of those, which basically can reach a vast variety of consumers, but it's a different kind of advertising. The future is definitely somewhere in the digital aspect. As Tanya mentioned, there's a lot of talk about how can you reach new consumers. I think the younger generation is much more IT savvy, and they're looking at how can we get the client to us. And I think we are studying right now, and we're looking at how we can really use this challenge as an opportunity for us to advertise in this segment as well, to get the people who would not necessarily read a magazine or newspaper.
Thank you very much. Luis?
So I want to start first by asking the audience a question. How many of you have read about some kind of luxury good lately? Do you remember what media you used? Many, I'm sure. So it has certainly changed throughout the years. It has changed at an accelerated pace, and just like my colleagues just mentioned, Tanya and Rudolf, it's been faster every time. 10, 15 years ago, it was very easy. We had quite a few options. It was very simple, and to do a marketing plan was so easy. and our consumers they were starting to get a little bit familiar with the types of media. And all of a sudden, everything has changed. New media products have arisen, and new generations have come. And this poses a very interesting challenge, I might say, to the brands, to the media, and to the agencies to work together and try to adapt even faster, if we can, to what is out there. We used to be able to just push our advertising through the existing media, and now we have to pull it. We have to bring in that new generation, but we mustn't forget the older generation, or even there might be a younger generation who likes to watch television, even if you don't believe it, or they want to read a magazine. So we have to get and working together, all of us, in order to be able to know our consumer better and try and package some kind of same message across the board. Yes, it has grown exponentially, and I think that in the coming 5 to 10 to 15 years, we might even have some kind of hologram type of media popping up somewhere. So we have to be prepared for that, and we mustn't think that consumers just expect to see an ad. They want to create their own experience through these new channels, and they also want to write their own stories through the social media.
Carlos or Jose Carlos, the mayor, please.
Are you doing advertising, Carlos?
We don't measure advertising tracking, but it will be interesting. And there are so many people in the audience that are from agencies that I would love to hear how their perspective in the investment on the type of segments in the populations. But go ahead.
Okay. Let me give you some inputs about Audi. You probably know the brand, but nowadays is the second largest automaker in the world in premium cars. I mean, the biggest domestic market is China already, ahead of Germany for the very first time in 2011. And in the region, Audi has grown the most among the different regions of we are present in this moment. So I think it's answering your question is completely different our approach in pan-regional or advertising locally, or the domestic investment that the countries does locally. We are much more traditional in the approach of advertising locally, and we change overnight our investment pan-regional to our own media. It means magazine, websites, and social media conversations, and we discard all the traditional investment in traditional media.
Well, based on the answers that I have, there's clearly a move into social networks. We haven't really discussed that part. But I think that me coming from the print side and from the digital side, obviously I'm concerned about the premium content and the role that premium content has always played in the marketing of luxury goods. How do you see the change of premium content or magazines affecting or moving forward to try to explain the changes that were happening with internet and with social media? Because more than digital, what's happening is that it's moving from digital to social media, is the way we see and from your comments. Tanya, you would like to elaborate?
I see more and more with being less capable of controlling the content. So I think the strategy we are using, at least in Diageo, is not trying to control the content anymore, as it doesn't seem it possible. But rather provide interesting content to consumers that they will, or to influencers, or to the bloggers, or to whoever can spread that content. So our strategy is more based on providing interesting content that can be used and can be interested to consumers or influencers or bloggers, rather than trying to control what is not possible to control anymore, the content. So that's what we are trying to do, is to be more creative in the kind of content we are providing. So we are changing the profile of, this is one thing we are doing, we are changing the profile of agencies we are using. We are using agencies more related to content creation. We are using people, not agencies also, that are related to stylish fashion or travels, that are related to content that we want to bring closer to the brands. So we are trying to generate content all the time that are related to that we can link to the brands, that to generate, to be more effective in the brand creation.
The show part and rules, how do you see it?
On magazines, of course, we can control the content because we in-house create, or with an agency create the images and visuals we want to let the world see. For the ladies, if you have a nice table book magazine and you open up page number 2 and you see a beautiful diamond watch, yes, it should make your heart smile a little bit. At the same token, coming a little bit to how things are changing and the digital aspect, I think that's where it's going to be very difficult how you can control it, because I think there's so much information out there, partially fed by us, partially fed by whoever. So I think that becomes a bit of a challenge. This challenge, of course, has opportunity if you take, let's say, a technical complication watch for men. On a digital aspect, a man can go there, he can see it, he wants to get more information, and there's a lot of ways to link it, to give the precise information to this gentleman to make a decision to, yes, I would like to buy a Chopard watch. So I think it is changing. How fast it is going to change, we can discuss next year, because whatever we say today probably will be changed by next year. I think anybody who is right now in this position as we are all in, we just have to go day by day, and we have to see how we can make the best out of the situation, and we have to sort of also look a little bit ahead, because it is coming. I mentioned to my colleagues earlier, my son, who is 13, he has a smartphone. It's amazing what he can do with it, but take it away from him, I'm afraid that he will not do anything, because everything is given to him in an IT aspect. I think we're going to see a lot of changes, and we have to prepare ourselves for it.
Yes, Luis, more than just giving us your feedback. Also, I mean, one of the key comments that is coming from the panel is that obviously you cannot control anymore the content. How can you manage to not control, because that's not the word, but how can you manage your message to be to try to convey what your values are to your clients based on a content that you cannot control? How would that affect you in the long run to your brand, and how can you benefit from that aspect?
Very interesting question. First of all, to give it a little more sense into Latin America, Christian Dior in Latin America is the #1 luxury brand in perfume and cosmetics. And our markets, our largest markets, are coincidentally Mexico and Brazil, no surprise. And when you go into the research of the internet users, regardless of the age group, there's many of us, and we can see from here, many of you with your Blackberries and your smartphones and your tablets. So in a way, you become mobile. So there's a lot of content that we put out that people want to know about, to learn about, and you cannot control what's being put out there, but what you can do is to work closely with the media agency, with all the publishing houses and all the available media in order to create or use wisely this media content. You won't be able to control it, but to make these sites so interesting, even if it's Facebook or if it's a specific mini site or if it's the global brand mini site, and try to create coherent messages, not to be all over the place, but if we send a message via TV, open TV or pay TV in our case, and if we have the print, and if we have the website, the official Dior.com website, well, let's work, and we have a print page, and let's do a special format, and then let's work together with creative editorial content that will really pull in and can coincide with the other visual messages, and at the same time in the magazines, websites, for example, I think there's a lot of potential that we still can create this kind of content, attractive content, that will be, once again, coherent. And when you have all these messages, all these coherent messages, so-and-so controlled, be it if there is, and there will always exist, because it's a huge web out there, at least the messages, the most frequent read messages and digested messages will be those that somehow were put out there by you. Something popped up into my mind, and it was a phrase that Christian Dior said himself back in 1947. He said, whether they talk good or bad about you, that's not the point. The point is they're talking about you. So in a sense, well, if they're out there, hopefully they'll talk good about us.
And Jose Carlos Emir, how do you feel the changes in the digital world are affecting the way that Audi is obviously targeting the consumers?
Okay, don't get me wrong. We love magazines, me especially, but and I think, and we truly believe that the technology didn't solve some questions yet. You can put some perfumes, you can put something in the magazine, but it's not a problem with the content creation. We truly believe that the magazines create great content. They has the power to communicate and to influence people, but there is a problem with the distribution everywhere in our region, especially some of the markets. In the case of, let me explain you something that I heard to Chivita, the owner of Editorial Abril there in Brazil. He said that the magazines has rasgabilidad. That means you can break your ad and you can keep the content and you can get a lot of things from the magazine. In the other side, from our point of view, the future is going to be much more digital.
And before I open the questions, one more question about the market. How do you see evolving the Latin American market? And what changes do you think you have adapted for the market compared to other regions of the world based on your experience and based the knowledge that you have about your companies? How do you target the Latin American consumer? Tania?
Yeah, I think first, for luxury, Latin America is a late luxury market. So while you see in Europe and US, or in a lower extent Asia, having luxury global operations for decades, in Latin America this is a quite recent phenomenon. And booming now, really now. So it's quite late development. Second, it's coming from a small base, so it's growing a lot. And also we are being able to grow a lot because of the growing economies and increasing of upper middle class and increasing of power of consumption of A class. So we are seeing this whole phenomenon affecting luxury consumers' goods. And fourth, because luxury goods are very aspirational in societies that tends to be, not generalizing, but already generalizing, but tends to be status-driven a lot. So all of this, it's providing a big opportunity to luxury goods for us, which is quite accessible luxury in terms of spirits for Diageo in Latin America. So we have the biggest growth coming from Latam for Diageo today. And we have already the biggest Johnny Walker global business is already Brazil worldwide. So it's not that it's small, it's already big and it's growing. And one of the biggest is already Mexico, etc. I would say the main difference to attack this consumer is exactly because it's quite young, it's quite recent, this phenomenon. And I would say there is some some things that are very common to these consumers, what these consumers are looking for in terms of global luxury brands, which quality, heritage, authenticity are all very important, and the status that these brands gives. But when I think about what is specific to Latin America, what is unique to Latin America, I think there is something on the values that these brands, some brands relate to, like heritage, more tradition, friendship, family, that are more relevant to Latin America than I think is relevant to worldwide. So we do have an example in Diageo. There is Buchanan's, the Scotch whiskey. Buchanan's is a leader brand in most of the markets in Latin America. And it's just in Latin America that is the leader brand. In the rest of the world, Johnnie Walker is the leader brand. Johnnie Walker is a brand related, in terms of position, related to status, to progress. And Buchanan's is related to friendship, family. I think the brands that convey these values tends to over-index in Latin America, if I think about one difference versus the lots of similarities that I see in luxury overall.
Thank you very much. Rudolf, for your perspective, please.
I think in Latin America you have a small percentage of, well, you have 600 million people, but I think the percentage of people who have an income who can afford high-priced items is limited. It has been increasing, I think, as Tanya stated very well, as economies have been growing, the middle class has been growing. So I think in this sense, yes, we definitely anticipate a further growth in this area. I read an article recently about the best shops in the world right now. They were not listed in Europe, they were not listed in the US, they were listed in Latin America. So I think as the young, very capable workforce is going to grow in these areas, they will be aspiring for quality products, for products which make them feel good, for products which gives them a status, which basically say we work hard, we should also enjoy the better things of life. We definitely believe that Latin America, yes, it has crises going up and down, but in general, I think we will see further development to the positive when it comes to luxury products, and our investment will be definitely in this area.
Thank you. Luis?
I think that in Latin America is ours for the taking. It's a momentous occasion that we have all these old consumers or mature consumers, yes, that they're old luxury, like Carlos mentioned, and we still have to cater to them. And we have all these emerging consumers, mainly, for example, in Brazil, this growing middle class, that they're avid to be part of the dream as well, whatever that dream may be. And we're there to provide the product to realize the dream. But it's not only that they've heard about our brands, they've read about them, but or they aspire to them. Many do, but many of them, and just to build on what has been mentioned by my colleagues, is that we have a responsibility as well to educate the consumer, because there are many consumers that may confound luxury with what we like to call mastige. It's mass and prestige, it's a mix, and sometimes it's like, oh yes, this is a luxury product. It's not necessarily that, but it's up to the brands to communicate what real luxury is, to communicate the story, the DNA of the brand, to the quality of materials, to the familiar moments. What is the essence of that product line? And at the same time, we cater to different audiences. We have premium products in our catalog, and we have a price entry point very accessible to the dream. And we have to take care of all of those and try to bring those first consumers that access through our lipstick, for example, that it's our opening price, and try to build them up through an education, certainly through the media, as well through the service they experience, and then try to move them up. And a big responsibility that we have, and a big challenge, is to educate in a sense, and to really make that not a one-time purchase. Oh, I purchased the dream watch or the dream perfume I've always wanted, or the car, or whatever luxury good. But I want to make that first purchase a forever purchase, a constant. So that's a challenge, but I think that Latin America right now, it's booming in that sense.
I do want to add something because you described it beautifully, and what we're seeing behind the scenes is very exciting as a market research company. We're asked more and more, especially during the recession and after the recession that the US was contracted, we start seeing how a lot of companies in the world are asking studies in Latin America, and we're growing. I mean, we're doing tons of studies of new products on seeing the economic development of these countries like Peru, Chile, economics that are stabilizing, and I see the smart companies creating this model that is readiness. How is this going? So how is the retail driving sales? And so they're more and more studying how the retail is evolving, what is the format, to see if you can put a retail, this type of retail, the hypermarkets. So if you start seeing all those things happening around, you get very excited about what he's saying, and is that Latin America is up and live and going. And of course we have different levels. We have a messy Venezuela going through a lot of crises. We have a very stable Peru growing and growing in tourism. Where the income is coming also makes a difference. So we have travel and tourism, luxurious facilities and hotels investing in some countries, where we see other more car industry growing, or perfume always driven those categories. So it's really exciting for me to watch those, packaging, studies on ways of combine art, and because luxury, as I think Anna mentioned, Tanya, sorry, it's about educating the consumer, but also it's about providing an excuse to satisfy that luxury thing that you don't need, but you want to buy it. So if it's ecologically nice, then I'm going to buy a hybrid instead of a regular car, because I feel that it's not only the brand, I'm contributing to the world. So the more in the Maslow pyramid that the economy and the culture evolve, the more likely that you're going to buy a luxury product, not just because it's luxurious, but because you're doing something to yourself, to the environment. So organic, probiotic, if it's something that you consume, or a soft drink, or package that has art because you're sponsoring this coffee brewer in Colombia or something, then it start adding value, and then you move all of a sudden to super luxury goods. And I hope I give you enough time to come up with something. Nice.
It's okay. We need your help to get better fuel in the region to sell some hybrids, because we cannot in this moment because the quality of the fuel. But that's another question. Now let me tell you that the opportunity that the new media give to us is to listen our people, our potential customer, our fans. That is very important for our brand. But in general terms, we try to be as much consistent as we can, communicating progressiveness, communicating sportiness, and communicating sophistication in the region the same way we communicate worldwide.
Are there any questions from the audience, please? No?
Hello, can you hear me? There we go. This question it's for the whole panel, but Jose talked a little bit about how he starts diversifying his campaigns along with traditional media as well as online media and digital. The question is, many times I've seen companies that have done that are using their same ads that they run on television. They'll just put that on the web. How important is it for companies and brands like yours to design specifically for different types of media, or mediums, I should say, be it online, be it television, etc.?
Okay, of course, I can only answer from our perspective, but it's very important. You have to understand who are you communicating with. And I mean, we don't talk anymore inside our company about campaigns. We're talking about conversation when we think something about social media. And of course, we try to understand what they are expecting from our side. But mainly, we are trying to act as media when we produce content. Not only spots or not only TVCs. When we communicate, we are trying to produce interest content for our audiences.
No question?
Hello, Maria Paredes from Televisa Publishing. Through the years, I've been hearing with talks with Rudy, with Luis, sometimes in Latin America, there's this loyalty to luxury brands. The whole family, if you have a family that has a Chopard watch, maybe the whole, it's like the cousin, the father, the mother, everyone tends to be loyal to the brand. And the same with Dior. Is this something you're finding with the new up-and-coming upscale consumer? That once you have maybe someone in the family that will continue to carry on that tradition?
I think there's a lot of end consumers, once they buy into a brand, become loyal to the brand. At the same token, I think if you look at probably the up and coming, and I go back into the time of my dad, he had one watch and he was happy with one watch. If you ask anybody here, especially the gentlemen, how many watches do you have? Because for gentlemen, the watch is really one of the few jewelry pieces we can wear. I would not be surprised if I hear 10, 15, 20, or even more. So at this point, you might find a watch which is more sportive or more elegant or more complication related. There's definitely, I think, in overall a brand a loyalty, especially if there was the quality and the experience and the emotion which is involved with the piece all in line. At the same token, I think there will be a little bit venturing off into different similar type of products where you say, okay, I have a Chopard watch, let me have something else too for different purpose. But we of course push to keep the clients close to us, and the competition will do the same. That's why we do advertising, that's why we do education to the end consumers, and it's an ongoing project for us.
And in our case, this is where CRM becomes extremely important, and getting to know who your client is, and then creating specific activities for those clients that get the information. And we've, yes, adapted many pieces for emailings, newsletters, specifically catered, not necessarily to, yes, we do cater, for example, for Mother's Day. Bring your mother or bring whoever you want from your family or someone or a friend for a Dior spa day and experience the whole brand. Or tell us your Dior story that you've had through the years, and what's your Dior legacy, etc. So this is where social media also plays a good role, and this is where you tie the whole thing together. And yes, we want to keep many generations together.
Thank you.
Well, just let me end with one final question to everybody, because I think that we have so many people coming from the agencies. Just please, from your point of view, are your companies following or can they follow a pan-regional strategy? That is, can you make a message to all the region, or are you trying to tailor each message to each country to make it more effective? Tanya?
We have pan-regional strategy, yes, for Latin America, but we do believe that the content needs to be even more now, and it's more relevant locally, rooted in local consumer insights. So we are developing more local content each time more. So really, even if with the global brands that use it to have big global campaigns, we are creating local adaptation of the global campaigns to make it local relevant.
I think for us it's a little bit different. We do have a target group which is definitely the affluent person who can spend, I don't know, $10, $50, $100,000 without hurting too much. when it comes to this target group, of course, we try to, well, in Latin America, you have those people, and the people who in Latin America have the money are normally well-educated, well-traveled. So someone from Brazil who might go to New York and see a nice Chopard piece in a boutique, of course, it will have some kind of image. So our advertising is geared towards repetition. It does not matter where you go, you will find a beautiful piece from Chopard in whatever country you go. And the goal is really to have a pan-regional global strategy when it comes to who Chopard is. So when you think of Chopard, you say, yes, I know exactly, it's a happy diamond watch with the floating diamonds. It should be sort of a milestone for everybody to recognize the pieces. The only difference where we act locally, if we do local events, we use local celebrities where we sort of bind the pride of a country. And I think Brazil is a perfect example. We did a special edition watch for Nelson Piquet, race driver. And we sold them like no tomorrow because there was such an association and love towards it. Ayrton Senna is another example. He's Pelé. I mean, you can use a lot of examples if you somehow have your corporate image, but link it with a local celebrity. I think it is definitely a winning formula.
Thank you very much. Luis?
And in our case, it's very similar to Chopard's. And the only thing that I would add is what we do adapt to a local level and to cater to local specificities are emailing, specific emailings, communicating to that particular segment of that particular consumer in that particular country. But that would be our only difference. Otherwise, it's one world, one Dior, one image, and using exactly the same local celebrities, etc. But it's getting the final message to bring to the point of sale in a very tailored way.
I think you already know that it's very complex. We're talking here at least 5 languages, a lot of kind of Spanish-speaking people in the region, and we try to maintain, of course, the main attributes of the brand, being pure and clean in all our communication. If it is in an event or digital or whatever, or print, it's always the same. But we adapt the messages in any country, and even getting the knowledge from our representative or importer in the country.
Thank you very much.